In this video, we will dive into the movie Cruella. We will discuss the movie story, summarize the plot, and explore the cast and characters. Additionally, we will cover the movie production details and box office performance. Finally, we will provide the reviews and personal reactions. Let's begin with the movie story. 1964, a young girl named Estella was born with her hair half black and half white. She has always had a creative passion and a rather festive personality. Her mother Catherine noticed and nicknames her Cruella. Catherine brings Estella to a private school where she promises to behave. However, the other children mock her because of her hair, and her only friend is another girl named Anita Darling, along with a dog she finds and names Buddy. After causing much mischief throughout her time at the school, Estella is expelled. Catherine limits their situation and goes to ask for help from her employer, who is hosting a winter ball at their estate, Hellman Hall. Catherine instructs Estella to stay in the car, but she steps out for a moment to observe the party. Estella and Buddy sneaks into the mansion where Estella, who has always had a love for fashion, is in awe of all the gowns and dresses at the ball. Unfortunately, Buddy gets out, and after Estella chases after him, she is found by a valet named John. Estella escapes him and is chased with Buddy by three vicious Dalmatians. Estella runs outside where Catherine is talking to her employer, Baroness von Hellman. The Dalmatians run past Estella and pounce on Catherine hard enough to push her over the edge of a cliff to her death, which Estella witnesses. The partygoers go outside to see what happened, with the Baroness lying and claiming that Catherine was trying to accost her for money. Estella runs with Buddy and travels in a garbage truck. Estella makes it to Regent's Park in London, where she had wanted to go with her mother, and she realizes that she is missing the necklace her mother had given her to hold on to. She falls asleep by the fountain and is found the next morning by two delinquent boys, brother Horace and Jasper, along with their one-eyed dog Wink. They are trying to swipe from the fountain when they meet Estella. Jasper determines that she doesn't have a family, and the three run away together when an officer catches them. Estella joins the boys at their hideout, and Jasper tells Horace that they should keep her around because having a girl might make her seem like an innocent distraction to people they plan to rob. Estella dyes her hair to go along with the scheme and be unrecognizable. 10 years later, Estella, that is now played by Emma Thompson, continues to pull off crimes with Horace and Jasper, now played by Paul Walter and Joel Ferry, to support themselves, plus Buddy and Wink. Estella also continues to work on her fashion ideas. On Estella's birthday, the little surprises her with a job for the Liberty department store downtown. Since Jasper had noticed her always staring at the place, she is very grateful to them. Estella begins working at Liberty as a cleaning woman for a rotten boss named Garland. He never gives Estella a chance to present her ideas and treat her awfully. Horace and Jasper bring her lunch, and Horace thinks the place can be robbed, but Estella wants to work honestly, only to have the trash she is taking out get poured onto her when the bag rips open. Geralt then brings her back in and tells her to clean overnight. She steals a liquor bottle from his office that night and goes to the window display, which Estella finds hideouts. Estella wakes up hangover by the window, with Horace, Jasper and other patrons seeing the display, which Estella changed radically to appeal more to her style. Geralt sees and prepares to fire Estella until he is informed that the Baroness who owns the store is arriving. Estella hides with Horace and Jasper, who pursue to nick Geralt's valet and grab a few goodies. The Baroness asks who did the window display, which she actually likes. Geralt says that Estella is the culprit and is being fired, but she instead tells her assistant Geoffrey to give Estella her business card. Estella runs up with the Badens in celebration of moving on up. Estella begins to work at House of Baroness, coming up with dress ideas and designs. She sees very quickly that the Baroness is a cold and soulless woman who only criticate the work of her employers and has rather psychopathic tendencies, such as using a razor to cut the sleeves of Estella's design and not care when she accidentally nicks Estella's hand. After work, she stops by a shop operated by a man named Artie, who quickly befriends Estella since she likes his fashion sense. She also noticed a red dress made by the Baroness in the window. Throughout her time working, Estella shows the Baroness that she truly does have a talent for fashion. However, Estella changes her tone toward the Baroness when she sees that she is wearing her mother's necklace. Despite the Baroness claiming it is a family heirloom, when she tells Estella that a former employer tried to rob her and then fell off a cliff, Estella begins to feel poor-hearted for the Baroness. Estella brings the news to Horace and Jasper, seeing it as an opportunity to pull off a heist, especially seeing as how the Baroness is set to host an upcoming gala. Estella memorized the Baroness' schedule and how the guards work and move around to plan for the heist. She knows that she will be recognized if she tries to attend, but she knows someone who can arrive. On the night of the gala, Horace and Jasper sneaks into the building under the guise of pest examinators using Wink as a fake raid. Jasper then makes his way to the security cameras as the heist commences. Estella leaves her wig off and contains her natural hair, showing up in disguise as Corolla and wearing the Baroness's dress she saw in Artie's shop. She stuns everyone in attendance, including the typically unimpressed Baroness, also viewing an astonished in Anita, who is a journalist and recognizes Estella from her hair. Estella subdues the Baroness guard before having a seat with the Baroness. When Horace approaches the safe with the necklace, he finds it empty and Estella sees that the Baroness is wearing it. Just as the Baroness realizes Corolla is trespassing, Jasper sets up some raids into the party, causing a distraction that allows Estella to snatch the necklace off the Baroness and give to Buddy. Unfortunately, the Baroness Dalmatians came out and one of them swallowed it after trying to take it back from Buddy. Estella sees that the Baroness is using a whistle to control the dogs, which is what she also used when Catherine died, meaning the Baroness deliberately called upon her dogs to kill Catherine. After their truck is towed, Estella hotwires a car to get away with the Badens and their dogs. Estella stops and cries over the fact that her boss murdered her mother. The next morning, Estella is still acting as her Corolla's persona, ordering Horace and Jasper to steal the Baroness's dog so one of them can pass the necklace. Estella then goes off to Anita's workplace, still as Corolla, and asks her to get the word out about her personal exploits. Meanwhile, Horace and Jasper find the Dalmatians as they are being given bath and they use Wink as bait to get them to come out before taking them away in a van. Corolla soon begins to crash many more events held by the Baroness and with Anita covering it in the paper. Corolla becomes a fashion sensation, completely upstaging and overshadowing the Baroness. She grows more and more agitated, even firing her liars Roger for failing to have Corolla arrested, then instructs Estella to come up with a new design for an upcoming spring collection presentation. Estella orders special material and creates the tracks which the Baroness is clearly impressed by, although she plans to take credit for it. Estella has Horace and Jasper sneaks into house of Baroness and create a competition to make it appear as the Cruella tried to break in, leading the Baroness to have her dress stored inside a top secret vault. Back at home, Estella's increasingly arrogant behavior has begun to put a strain on her relationship with Horik and Jasper. The Baroness hold her spring collection show, but when they open the vault, a swarm of moths fly out, having torn through almost all the dresses. This is because the material with which Estella made her dress was special cocoons. Outside, Horik and Jasper, accompanied by Artie, put on a real show where Artie sings I Wanna Be Your Dog, and Corolla emerges with a dress made of Dalmatian fur, leading the Baroness to think that Corolla killed her dogs. When Estella returns home, she finds Horik and Jasper tied up, with the Baroness and her henchman having detected that Corolla is Estella. The henchman grabs Estella and ties her to a chair, where the Baroness is planning to have Horik and Jasper framed for killing Corolla in a fire. Estella fires back that she knows that Baroness killed her mother, but by her words she is implied to have killed others when she does not immediately know who Estella is talking about. She leaves Estella plus Buddy and Wink to burn, but Estella sees a mysterious figure coming to get her. The place burns down and word spreads that Corolla has died. Estella wakes up in John's house along with Buddy and Wink plus that still alive Dalmatians. He brings her Catherine's necklace and lets her know that it's been thoroughly bleached, which to Estella's surprise contains a key to a box. Inside the box is a birth certificate of Estella's. John then reveals that the Baroness is Estella's true biological mother. Although the Baron did want children, the Baroness thought being a mother would hinder her success, so she ordered John to have the baby killed after she was born, but he instead found Catherine and gave Estella to her so she can be raised properly. Estella is in disbelief and runs away, stealing a motorcycle from a delivery boy. She rides back to Regent's Park, where she addresses the space as Catherine. While she is in disbelief at being lied to about Catherine not being her mother, she still viewed her as such and now decided to embrace her new identity as Cruella, born brilliant, bad, and a little bit mad. Estella gets a truck and busts through the front of the police station, then sets Mick inside to get a key to Horace and Jasper's cells. Although they break out, they are still mad at Estella for how she treated them. After she tells them about the Baroness being her real mother, they go back to John's home, where she says that Horik and Jasper are her family. They then gather to come up with a final plan to bring down the Baroness, and Estella later goes to Artie for help as well. Horace comes back with the Baroness, Panther, de Vil car, and Estella's like the sound of the name. The Baroness hosts another ball where all in attendance are wearing wigs to honor Cruella. Estella's grab a pin and box the Baroness, distracting her long enough to grab her dog Whistle. She uses it to bring the Dalmatians outside by the cliffside. Horik, Jasper, Artie, and John gather people to stall heating outside. Estella gets the Dalmatians to obey her and then reveals to the Baroness that she is her daughter. The Baroness once again take credit for Estella's talent and pretend to make her to take over the business alongside her. She approaches her as if to hug her, but instead pushes Estella over the edge. This is witnessed by everyone just as police arrive, and the Baroness is unable to cover it up. Likely, Estella prepared for this and she uses a parachute to stop her fall. As the Baroness is being arrested, Cruella arrives once again, surprising everyone. Estella, through narration, revealed that she bequeathed her will to Cruella, knowing that Baroness would try to kill her, which now leaves her with her mother's fortune. Cruella holds a funeral for Estella, then takes Horik and Jasper plus Buddy, Wink, and the newly adopted Dalmatians back to the estate, which she renames Hell Hall after taking the man out of Hellman. Together with John and Artie as part of the team, Cruella tells the brothers that she has some big plans in store. During the credits, Cruella leaves a Dalmatian puppy named Pango at Roger's home and another named Perdita at Antita's home. Roger, who have now become a songwriter, begin to write Cruella's iconic theme song. Cruella was always going to be a difficult movie to get right. When you think of classic Disney villains, Cruella de Vil might not be one of the best ones that comes to mind. She is an iconic villain, but not quite as iconic to upstage other villains like Maleficent or Ursula. However, she is without a type that most unseptic. How is the word can you turn a woman who wants to kill 101 dogs into anything other than a monster? You really cannot, and you should not try. I am reminded of Star Kid Production, a super niche musical theater, and the movie Cruella is directed by Craig Gillespie and release date in 2021. If you are going into Cruella expecting to see an origin story for the evil fashion designer, then congratulations, that is exactly what you get here. Emma Stone plays Cruella as she slowly makes her way into the fashion world of 1970s London. On her rise to fame, she encounters the Baroness, played by Emma Thompson, a prestigious fashion designer who, from the very first second that appears on screen, just screams villain. Without going into too much detail here, the movie has the two fashion designers compete against one another for fame and fortune, with both sides becoming more extreme in eliminating their opponent. Cruella takes a lot of its cues from previous Disney movies like Maleficent and struggles to really create an individual identity of its own for its central character. It certainly has style and spunk befitting of its fashion and punk-inspired roots, but nothing that Cruella really does feels completely unique. Based on the little marketing I saw of the movie, the biggest comparison I could read from the trailers was that this was going to be Disney's Joker. Both movies center on theatrically irredeemable antagonists that we slowly but surely understand. We don't execute their action, but we can see how society put them in the position that it did. Cruella, however, never goes pushing into social commentary the way Joker attempted to. It wants to be a dark examination of its lead, but it does not have anything to say of any real worth. Maybe the fashion industry is forgiving, but that's not the same as society is fundamentally broken and it's constantly failing its citizens on a daily basis. There are times when Cruella looks and sounds like she belongs in a mid-2000s emo punk band, for better or for worse. It's kind of cute to actually see Disney try to be edgy and dark with the movie when that's clearly not their modus operandi. It almost makes we want to pat Walt's frozen head and give him a gold star for Disney's first unambitious adult movie over a decade after the scene ended. Her aesthetic and personality just drip that she would live and breathe hot topic, and I can see quite from the film being plastered all over t-shirts. Only please don't, because the dialogue in this movie is so clunky. It's kind of funny. For some strange reason, the film is being marketed as a comedy, and I would believe that based on how some of this dialogue is written. A rock through my car window would be more subtle than this movie is at times. It does not help that a lot of that performances here feel surface level. Emma Thompson's Baroness comes across as your average snooty aristocrat, scoffing at the people beneath her and looking over them with haughty superiority. The movie describes her as a complete narcissist, and she fits that bill, but she is not engaging to watch. There's nothing else to her character besides being the antagonist I should hate her with all of my guts and want to see her be bested by Cruella, but instead, I am left accepting that she is the villain of the movie and that's it. There's nothing memorable about her in any of the scenes that she is in. I feel like my opinions on Cruella should be more extreme than they are. This feels like a movie that should not be middle of the road, and yet it is a numerous aspect. Everything that Cruella does, I can think of at least 5 movies that tackle the same ideas better. I will say that no matter how I look at it, that costuming in the movie is excellent. If you are going to create a movie centered on the fashion industry, that was the one area you need to get right, and it easily does it. Corella's outfit looks absolutely stellar and visually pop whenever Emma Stone is in them. While Emma Stone's performance is also frequently hit or miss, at least she pulls off the look of a young Cruella de Vil. Also of quality is surprisingly the soundtrack. I did not expect Cruella for all movies to have a soundtrack that firing on all cylinders. But the selection of songs chosen for the film are almost all great, from The Clash to Supertramp to Edo. Each song perfectly fit the mood and tone that Gillespie wanted for each scene. As someone who loves classic rock and punk, especially for the British variety, this entire soundtrack was a joy to listen through. But enjoying a movie visually and auditorily is one thing. A movie can surprise by appeasing the two senses. But no matter how you slice it, the movie lives and dies by Cruella. Again, we are expected to be rooting for a character who is mostly associated with the attempted murder of dogs, which is a shorthand of a clearly evil villain. How do you instantly show to the audience that a villain is truly despicable? You make them kick a puppy. Does Cruella as a character reach those depths of depravity? Is the movie asking too much to get me to feel for her? Cruella is the movie, so let's review the movie. Emma Stone delivered in this wild and wacky origin story about one Dalmatian's villainous diva. By reimagining their animated classic as live action films, Disney has churned out a strings of blockbusters, so perhaps it was inevitable that the iconic villainess of 1961 One Dalmatians would get her due again. 21 years after Glenn Close headlined two live-action adventures as the checking fashionista Cruella de Vil, Emma Stone slips into a two-tone wig and a Dalish grin for the inventive origin story Cruella. Not a prequel but rather a Wicked-style retelling, Cruella forges a new path that begins in 1964. There, a snaring schoolgirl named Estella battle back against bullies and earn a permanent record full of black marks. However, neither schoolyard brats nor a horrific tragedy that pitches her into a hard-knock life on the streets of London will get in the way of her big dreams to become a major fashion designer. Smash a cut to 10 years later, where Estella crafts stitch perfect excuses for her thieving crew through pickpocketing and more elaborate heists. She, the clever Jasper, the dopey Horace, and two scruffy pups, Buddy and one-eyed Vic, scraps by in an abandoned warehouse. That is until Estella's genius for design and troublemaking catches the eye of London top designer, the ever merciless Baroness, played by Emma Thompson. Working under his haute-couture hairnet seems like a dream job, but things swiftly turn dog-eat-dog when a horrid revelation comes to light. So Estella embraces her dark side, creating an alter ego named Corolla, who artificially crashes every Baroness event to steal the spotlight. Through the battle of these stylish titans, we are not only gifted the birth of Cruella, but also two deliciously thrilling Disney villainess for the price of one. This curious collusion of influences reflect the war going on in this unusual Disney movie. This curious collusion of influences reflect the war going on in this unusual Disney movie. Cruella not only pulls from one-handed and one Dalmatians but also bears plot element theme and its devilish attitude from films like All About Eve, The Favorite, and The Devil Wears Prada, and it becomes quite honestly as the screenplay was penned by five writers including The Devil Wears Prada's Alain Bros McKenna and The Favorite's Tony McNamara, who gives Stone another witty and screwed seamer to sink her teeth into. However, this curious collision of influences reflects the war going on in this unusual Disney movie. So, Cruella is a cheeky coming of age story about how a headstrong girl blossoms into a badass one whose talent and genius will not be ignored. If it is only a dark comedy about ambition, greed, corporate sabotage, revenge, class conflict, high fashion, and murder, of course, much of the above are things that have been neatly folded into family friendly movies before. The great movie Casper comes to mind. Still, director Craig Gillespie struggled with how to create a balance that will enhance children and entertain adults. The result is a messy yet fascinating and tremendously thrilling film. The first challenge comes from a need to appeal to fans. Cruella includes her signature black and white hair, her recklessness driving in chic cars, her bubbling crew love for the insult imbecile, some callback jokes, and her classic chuckle. All of this is folded in with ease, while some bits, including her desire for a Dalmatian coat, are reimagined and razor sharp wit. However, 101 Dalmatian big-hearted pet owner Anita and Roger are haphazardly waked in, giving two talented TV actors very title to a beyond gaping at the darling Emmas. But most crown-worthy is the scene where Cruella concords her last name. We are talking solo, a Star Wars story levels of exasperating. Not every detail needs to be darkly explained. Clocking in over 2 hours, the runtime will likely prove a challenge to kids and parents alike. The pacing would be smoother without the many scenes where Estella explains what just happened to her cohorts or in excessive voiceover. Of course, this is done to make sure kids are keeping up with the plot. But how will a movie this long, which is often about pretty grown up stuff, keep their attention anyhow? Not every detail needs to be darkly explained. The pandering to parents is just as bad as evidenced by a comically long list of nostalgia-driven needle drops. Props to the soundtrack team for pulling together truly epic songs from Nina Simons, The Zombies, Deep Purple, The Clash, and the Rolling Stones. However, the editing team should have offered some restraint. The lyrics and song choices become so on the nose it hilariously predictable. Like when a Cruella victory is celebrated by blasting sympathy of the devil. Nonetheless, the use of John McCary I Wanna Be Your Dog is fantastic, hitting hard with a punk rock fashion show performance that is edgy and astounding. The fashion all around is an absolute marvel because Disney smartly hired an action genius design. Even if you don't know the name Jenny Bevan, you know her work. Over 43 years, she has created costumes for a string of period pieces and fantasy films, resulting in 10 Academy Award nominations. You might know her best for her Oscar-winning design on Mad Max Fury Road. Bevan has a brilliant mind that weaves together styles and texture to create characters, words, and story, all with thoughtful fashion. In Cruella, she establishes Estella as a mirthful misfit from the moment the schoolgirl fresh prints her blazer. wearing it inside out so the fleshy liner shows. Despite car chases, spirited heists, and silly shenanigans, the greatest spectacle in Crawlers comes in the sequence built around Beeman's design. Every time Crawler upstages the Baroness, a new look and a new audacious way to debut it makes for a thrilling fun while making no mockery of fashion or apology for the ferocious women who wear it. That one its own feels like a gift since fashion is so often sneered at as a fabulous thing, but we are in a past Miranda Presti monologue world, so you better recognize that even those who are not interested in fashion are influenced by it. Fashion is almost a character in Crawler, and her co-stars do not disappoint. Whether racing through back alley, eye rolling over idiots, or cracking a smile wide and blood red, Emma Stone is living for this moment and it shows. The quiping misfits of her teen movie years prove the perfect place to cut her teeth, allowing her to bite hard into withering one-liners and howls of rebellion. However, this is about the revelation from Estella to Corolla, so there are pockets where this gradually feels like a facade as it should. Stone is playing a woman fighting her inner diva. Emma Thompson, Baroness, is the fully formed villainess here, and she is a vision of viciousness and glamour. No need for chuckle or shout out. The Baroness is an ice queen who might make you cry, bleed, or worse. But she need not raise her voice to make your spine quicker. The spirit gives Thompson a wealth of punchlines. Yet, because of her savage yet psychotic delivery, the funniest one become a simple. The Baroness is very rich yet has no flips to give. For their part, the sporting cast stars Hauser, who works the Gillespie in Tonya, plays Horik with unexpected warmth, making him the perfect scene partner to a teeny pup with a eye patch. John McCrea brings shade and flair as a vintage sailor with an eye for opportunity. Jamie Dutrow leans hard into a caricature to establish what kind of fool would dare about Estella. Mark Strong gives steeliness in a small but pivotal role. Yet the standout in spotting goes to Joel Ferry, who turns Jasper into much more than a lackey. With a twinkle in his eyes and a sparkling tenderness, he hints there might be more between Cruella and her partner in crime, yet it's never pushed to the point to subplot or destruction. Instead, this seeming intensity gives a grander context to why he would put up with some of Cruella's crueler antics. It also brings a little bit of spice. Director Craig Gillespie and his screenwriters Dana Fox, Tony McNamara had a tricky needle to thread. They were tasked with creating a reimagining fresh enough to thrill general audience but familiar enough to appease 101 Dalmatians fan. With a PG-13 movie, mature content is allowed but its age must be child-proofed. The result is a wonky ride that feels like Cruella herself might be at the wheel. All that said, the studio franchise entry makes some big, wild swings that are simply spectacular. Along with the glorious cons of fashion, this Capofic film offers complicated female character with an apologetic attitude, crime, ambition, and a truly bonkers backstory that's better left unspoiled. These glimpses at greatness had me wishing it did more than scratch at camp. Saying between outlandish and unexpected, the movie ultimately feels like a clumsy compromise, still with creamy whiskey, cracking leading ladies, imaginative twist, and plenty of eye-popping spectacle. Cruella is a hell of a good time. Cruella is the movie. So, what is the reviews of the movie? You have to watch it or skip it. A little bit brilliant and mad, but mostly bad. I am oddly fascinated by Craig Gillespie's Cruella not because the movie is good but because it's such a perfect case study for every tired trend and trope currently infecting mainstream blockbusters. It's like the way the Disney greenlit the project is that they looked across the company vast array of intellectual properties, pick 101 Dalmatians and said this is a box, fill it with something that is popular, and that's how you get a movie like Cruella where it part superhero origin but also supervillain origin and also a tepid girl power message and also the inevitable twist that shows a revelation about the protagonist's lineage while also dumping on loads of style like dunking a rice cake in a weight of chocolate to make the lake of taste. And yet for all the flair Gillespie and his cast bring the project, they cannot hide the Cruella is too long, too blotted and a stand-chester rather than a trendsetter like its title character. There are times when the film still manages to be fun, but it's a devil's bargain. Corolla lurches through a painfully long first act where we have to go all the way back to the childhood of Estella, a girl with a rebellious streak, black and white hair, and raised by a kindly mother. Her mother cautions her daughter not to give it in the dark side, dubbed Corolla. Corolla launches through a painfully long first act where we have to go all the way back to the childhood of Estella, a girl with a rebellious streak, black and white hair, and raised by a kindly mother. Her mother cautions her daughter not to give in her dark side, dubbed Corolla, when her mother is knocked over a cliff by Dalmatians who were chasing young Estella. The child feels responsible. Growing up an orphan on the streets of London, she meets fellow streets Jasper and Horrocks, and they form a trio of grifters. But Estella belongs to be a fashion designer on the level of the glamorous Baroness. When Estella finally gets her shot, she is ascetic despite the Baroness' casual cruelty until she learns that the Baroness used a dog whistle to call the Dalmatians that purposefully knocked Estella's mother off a cliff. So Estella walks revenge. I'm not making any of this up. You can already see how tortured the film is in trying to have in both ways that Cruella is a dark and twisted individual but also sympathetic, like a Disney PG-13 version of 2019 Joker, but the Joker is a popular character who has only grown over the years because there's been a steady stream of stories about the clown prince of crimes. There's really only one Cruella story, and it's 101 Dalmatians, which is not even a particularly good Disney movie. That Cruella is a thinly drawn character whose plan kidnap a bunch of puppies, skin them and turn them into a coat yet somehow avoid responsibility for the kidnapping make no sense. Cruella kind of dances around all this by still trying to show its protagonist as rebellious and twisted, but someone who would never hurt a dog as she adopts a stray puppy in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Thus, the defining characteristic of this Disney villain lady who wants to kill dogs is effectively noted. So what are we left with? Cautiously, in its second act, Cruella becomes a much better movie as it turns into a fashion war between Cruella and the Baroness, with Cruella still masquerading as the meek, timid Estella to stay close to the Baroness. While it feels forced into a superhero trope, Cruella being the alter ego of Estella and dressing up in costume to be her true self, I'd be totally drawn for a movie about wearing fashion designer. The problem is that not IP and Disney cannot abide producing an original theatrical feature. There are shareholders to consider, and if you make a movie that flops, then IP is a useful shield against failure. No one took a chance on something untested, and 101 Dalmatian is a brand people know. It didn't work, but at least no one was reckless by trying something new. It's a captivating to watch Cruella stand against any kind of risk even though everyone involved seems to be having a blast. Gillespie certainly didn't phone anything in, and Jeremy Beavens feels like a shoe-in for a Best Costume Design Oscar nomination. Stone is her usual winning self as she chews the scenery, while Fry and especially Hauser are hilarious in their supporting roles. Even the Baroness von Hellman's irredeemable, obvious villain comes alive. Basically, Thompson is so good at making that villains delectable. For a film that feels like the definition of solid studio product, it seems like no one involved in the production got that memo and really tried to make a fun, lively movie even if forced to labor under so many worn-out story tropes and stylistic choices. If you even think about cola for more than 30 seconds, it starts to become infuriating. For example, the film is wall to wall needle drop from the era, and I cannot help but wonder when the Stooges were recording I Wanna Be Your Dog in 1969 if Aggie turned to Dave, Ron, and Scott and said, "This song is good, but I hope one day it gets used in a live action Disney adaptation of 101 Dalmatian that explored the origin of Cruella de Vil. You know, because dogs. But the scene it's used isn't fun because it's part of the whole fashion war sequence and it's colorful and Stone is learning into her character's dark side. And you kind of want to go with it until you realize that a Cruella de Vil origin story is a sign of total creative bankruptcy, but it may sell some Cruella car power t-shirts at. And yet I cannot even bring myself to be mad at Cruella, partly because of the effort from the production but partly because it would be like getting mad at the weather. It's a thing that happens from time to time, and while I'm sure there's a bit of old man yells at cloud here on my part, I also feel like this is a nothing new. Disney is not going to stop adapting IP nor in any other studio because there's no money and no audience for an original idea on a blockbuster scale. Granted, that doesn't mean an adaptation for IP has to be almost a full hours longer than the thing that it's based on. But even here, I cannot bring myself to get angry at something as disposable as Cruella. It does not tarnish 101 Dalmatians because there was nothing to tarnish. The film will be forgotten the weekend after it hits theaters because one of the things that brings wrong with modern blockbuster is that they are purposefully emerald. To use an analogy apt to the film's protagonist, Corolla is not haute couture, it's cheaply made for the purpose of mass production, and you wear it while purposefully ignoring how it was made. Corolla that is released in 2021. So, what is the movie about? In the original animated 101 Dalmatians, there was nothing black and white about Cruella de Vil. As her name less implied, more flat out screamed, she was a Disney villain drawn delightfully, deliciously dark. Kudos then to director Craig Gillespie for pulling off a live-action prequel that adds a few shades of grey without murdering the character one bit, learning into Cruella's inherent flame bonds for a slick and stylish clothing caper. Unlike the Sleeping Beauty villain reimagining Maleficent, which tied itself its narrative not attempting to retool the classic fairy tale, Cruella wisely divorced itself from the context of the original film, where that was released in 1961 based on Dodie Smith novel from the 50s. This largely takes place in the 1907, recontextualizing Corolla Rico's sartorial styles as a punk explosion. railing against conformity and scoffing at the safety of the swimming 60s. It's a colorful background for a reimagined origin story that takes a young Estella, an impressive typer, is an opening act with Melitida eco mischief and morphs her into the Jacking Corolla via a life of crime. A stint on the shop floor of Liberty and a job at the most fearsome fashion house in London. The result is a tale of two Emmas. Center, of course, is Stone teasing out Estella's encouraging evil while containing all the charismatic screen presence that's defined her career so far, and pulling off a decent British accent to boot. Among the theatrically is one scene she tumbled onto a red carpet from a bill lorry is a giant rubbish dress and the two-tone wigs. She finds moments of humanity without diminishing Corolla's delectable extremity, but it's Emma Thompson who threatened to steal the film as the Baroness, a fashion boss whose cutthroat nature extends well beyond the catwalk. Whether she is slashing at garments with a straight razor, loudly reading her own rave reviews, or calling people imbeciles with fatal levels of derision, she is a killer creation. Thompson plays it to absolute perfection, running away with very scene she is in. The pair are so much fun that other players struggle to get a look in. Jewel Fry and Paul Walter Hauser entertain as Estella's comrades in crime, but Mark Stone's velvet John sinks into the background. Kirby Howell despises journalist Anita, a nod to the original Dalmatians, appear often while saying Little, and John McCrea Bowick and a gorgeous boutique owner Artie is a disappointingly fleeting presence. He is intriguing enough to deserve his own film. Corolla could easily lose 20 minutes. Gillespie keeps the energy high throughout. The score scene riffs he brought to Tonya continues here from a stacked soundtrack of 60s and 70s great The Clash, Blondie, The Stooges, to a stunning extended tracking shot through the halls of Liberty. What could have been a mere IP cache instead become an unexpectedly cinematic crime and torture romp delivered with a shot of style, snark, and insanity that Cruella herself would likely applaud. She makes being bad look very good. With killer looks, explosive filmmaking, and stellar turns from Emma Stone and Thompson, Corolla is a spring-summer 21 treat. Corolla is the movie that is released in 2021, so Corolla's first weekend on Disney Plus gets 39% lower viewership than Mulan. More people turn to streaming Mulan on Disney Plus on its opening weekend than Cruella. Cruella is the latest live-action reimagining of one of Disney's classic animation films and stars Emma Stone as the title character. The film was released in theater on May 28, and like Mulan and Raya and the Last Dragon, the film was released on Disney Plus for audience to watch at home for $30 under the Premier Access feature. Cruella, alongside A Quiet Place Part 2, is seen as the kickoff to the summer movie season, which will see other Disney films like Black Widow and Jungle Cruise get release day and date in theater and on Disney Plus Premier Access. Cruella opened at number 2 at the box office with $26 million over the Memorial Day weekend and in total has grossed $42 million worldwide. The film hybrid release model might have hurt the overall opening weekend, but it is a positive sign that audiences are eager to return to the film, but it seems more audience favor seeing it in theater than at home. In a recent report by Deadline, Cruella was streamed by 6 86,000 US households over the holiday weekend, which is down 39% less than Mulan, which was streamed by $1.12 million US households over the 4-day Labor Day weekend back in summer 2020. If the number is accurate and at $30 per account, it is projected that Cruella generated 20 billion from viewers on Disney Plus. The numbers come from Samba TV, who is one of the few films that monitors and reports streaming metrics, as Disney has yet to release an official number. There are a few factors as to why Cruella made less on Disney Plus than Mulan. Mulan did not get a theatrical release in the United States due to most theaters across the country still being closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, while Cruella was released in over 3,000 theaters in the United States as more theaters has opened up. So revenue was split across two platforms. Mulan also benefited from being one of the few new releases to be released on a streaming service, showing that audiences were wanting to watch a big new movie at home. Since the release of Mulan, audiences have seen the release of high-profile films Wonder Woman 1984, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Mortal Kombat on streaming service. Despite coming in second at the box office to A Quiet Place Part 2 and behind Mulan in Disney Plus streaming numbers, it is still too early to count Cruella out yet. The film could hold out at the box office as studios slowly start to release new films in theaters, giving Cruella little competitions. What this means for Cruella's fate as far as sequel or spin-off films go has yet to be seen, but director Craig Gillespie has some ideas. Cruella 2021 movie end credit scenes massive Disney retcon explain. Cruella created Disney's biggest ever retcon, and its end credit scene revised the plot of 101 Dalmatians. Supposedly the origin story of one of the Disney's most infamous villain, Cruella, never fully explains how Estella becomes the bloodthirsty puppy killer who appears in the 1961 animated classic. The end credit scene is even more problematic, raising questions about foundational fact about 101 Dalmatians. In Cruella's short end credit scenes, two Dalmatian puppies appeared on the doorsteps of Anita, a journalist, and Roger, a lawyer turned composer. The puppies, of course, are revealed to be Pongo and Perdita, the two main characters of 101 Dalmatians. As the camera zooms out, Roger starts composing the movie's signature songs, crooning Cruella de Vil. Cruella de Vil, if she doesn't scare you, no evil thing will. The movie's short take hammers in a point that up till the end had been arguable. Cruella, like many recent live-action remakes, completely ignored Disney canon in favor of telling a more known story. DC Joker did the same thing in 2019, prompting fans to criticize his complete discredit of Batman canon. The chances to Cruella's backstory make her a more sympathetic character, but undermine her villainous nature and ruin 101 Dalmatians. Cruella gives Pongo to Roger and Perdita to Anita in the end credits scene. In the original 1961 movie 101 Dalmatians, aspiring songwriter Roger Radcliffe and his love interest Anita each coincidentally owns a unique breed of dog, the Dalmatians. That connection is the major force that brings the two together as Pongo searches the secret to find a stable love match for himself and Roger. The fact that the dogs are revealed to be gifts from Cruella imposes a new meaning on the movie. Was buying back Pongo and Perdita's puppies part of Cruella's plan all along? She signs her notes to Anita and Roger, "See you soon," suggesting she has a future agenda. But how could she know Anita and Roger would meet? Did she facilitate it in same way? Corolla's end credit scene makes her mission to buy the puppies in 101 Dalmatian a strange short of reclamation. It makes sense in some ways. Corolla may feel as she has a right to the puppies after gifting their parents to Roger and Anita. But what makes her want to turn them into forecourts? In the end credit scene, Corolla's gifting of Pongo and Perdita seems like a heartfelt thank you to two friends who helped her achieve her goals. It suggests Corolla's feelings about Dalmatians have changed as she gives two innocent puppies to loving homes. Corolla's revisionist history also makes Pongo and Perdita's quasi-siblings part of the same litter of puppies that one of the Baroness Dalmatians presumably gave birth to. Most of the movie arcs that nurture beats nurture, but it's still a little odd that such a good-natured animal are the children of a vicious attack dog. Roger has a history with Corolla and wrote the song before 101 Dalmatians. The biggest inconsistency between Corolla and 101 Dalmatians is the history the 2001 film creates between Cruella and Roger. The movie's end credit scene confirms Cruella's Roger, who was the liar from the Baroness before being fired, in the same characters as Roger in 101 Dalmatians. Cruella mentions during the movie that Roger blames her for being fired, foreshadowing their future enmity in 101 Dalmatians. However, the two don't seem to have a strong relationship. The movie suggests Cruella and Anita had a shared history, with their relationship shown to be distant politeness of former acquaintance. Roger seems to know Cruella only through Anita. In a key moment, Roger's interaction with Cruella during the 2021 live-action Disney film are used to explain the origin of his hit song Cruella de Vil. In fact, the stars composing the song during the end credit scene rather than spontaneously writing it before Corolla's visit in 101 Dalmatians. The change subverts Roger's character development in 1961 animated movie, where he goes from aspiring songwriter to professional success. In 101 Dalmatians, it's Roger conflict with Corolla that inspires him to finally pen a hit. Corolla reveals that inspiration struck Roger much earlier in the Disney timeline, raising the question, if Roger had a good song to sell, why was the sitting on it all this time? Corolla's end credit scene completely changed 101 Dalmatians. Corolla's end credit scene is revisionist, changing the plot and meaning of 101 Dalmatians. If Anita and Roger both have strong relationship with Corolla pre-101 Dalmatians, why is not that explored in the movie? Corolla is made to explain how Estella becomes the Disney villain, but the end credit scene does not close the gap in the timeline. Instead, it just puts a new spin on Roger and Anita's character that complicates their interaction with Corolla and means their roles in 101 Dalmatians no longer make sense. The end credit scene raises multiple new questions about the plot of 101 Dalmatians that must be answered in Cruella 2. If the sequel is a remake of Disney's animated classic, presumably told from Cruella's perspective, it will likely explore her connection to Anita and Roger more deeply and put a different spin on their relationship given the new point of view. At the end of Cruella, she and Anita are friends, so why does that change? Does Roger really have a grudge against Cruella he hopes to avenge in the future? Does Cruella have a long-term plan in which she hopes to again get the help of Anita and Roger? Of course, the one overriding question is how does Cruella become the villain of 101 Dalmatians? Throughout the 2021 movie, Cruella brushes against evil but never truly embraces it. At one point, she suggests killing the Baroness Dalmatians to make a court, later appearing in a spotted dress suggesting she did just that. The shocking reveal doesn't last longer, however. In the very next scene, Disney plays the just kidding card, avoiding the moral copyright that is canning puppies for fashion. Corolla enjoys the post-fashion force scandal that paints her as a anti-establishment criminal, but it turns out she doesn't truly have the heart to kill dogs. This play with perspective and reputation could carry on into the sequel should it happen. Cruella 2021 movie Cruella end credit scene also suggests she has started breeding Dalmatians, overcoming her childhood fear and adult hatred for the breed. What are her plans for the Dalmatians puppies is her determination to make her Dalmatians forecourt in 101 Dalmatians, that fulfillment of an aspiration held over from Cruella. If so, why? Cruella ends with the defeat of the Baroness and a conclusion to Cruella's emotional arc after reconnecting with her family, Jasper and Horik, and moving into a new home. What sends Cruella back over the edge into madness? Was Cruella a hit? Why Disney green lit a sequel? Was Cruella a hit? The answer is complicated. Certainly, the box office return for the live-action Disney movie is nothing like what would have been expected before the pandemic. However, Disney's official stance is treating the picture as a success. Cruella thus reflects the transitionary period Hollywood finds itself in at the moment, with theater around the world still closed both temporarily and in some cases permanently. Opening weekends are no longer the benchmark for a movie commercially viability. Cruella is a soft reboot for the 1962 Disney classic 101 Dalmatians, following a pattern of the company remaking its legacy animated titles in live action. The movie presents the origin story of the iconic evil fashion queen Cruella de Vil, following the example of Maleficent. Not only does Cruella offer a sympathetic view of its villain, but it wisely lands into a 70s glam rock aesthetic, letting fashion and pop hits take the forefront of the narrative. The box office returns for Cruella so far have just barely broken $130 million globally, but the studio is treating the movie as a hit. Reportedly, Cruella 2 is already in development at Disney. This suggests the studio thinks the title is bankable long term. While Cruella was met with a decidedly mixed critical reception, the public has been kinder, with teen girls in particular being drawn to the movie's campy rebellion spirit. Disney is going to pursue that teen market, and likely the studio is hoping for further return in the month leading up to Cruella becoming free on Disney Plus. As Scott Madison pointed out in his Forbes coverage of Cruella's domestic box office performance, Disney is playing the long game with release in the area of COVID-19. The company has leveraged its streaming platform to get the most out of its new content. Although Raya and the Last Dragon didn't have a major opening weekend, it went on to earn 6 at that. It makes sense then that Disney would be so quick to order a sequel even if Cruella doesn't hit the approximately $400 million it's need to in order to break even. With Cruella's estimated plotted budget of $200 million, the movie is not a bomb either, and is in an attractive position of being a promised moneymaker long term. Likely, Disney sees Emma Stone's Cruella de Vil as the kind of icon that teen girls will storm to for years to come. This is attractive to a company like Disney because it can be a lucrative merchandising opportunity, filling the Ganges gap of young women who have outgrown Frozen but are still young enough to want to spend their disposable income on licenses, t-shirts, posters, and other merchandise. Producing Cruella 2 is a smart way to keep the brand active, much like Disney did with Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland franchise. Disney can maintain interest in the Cruella sequel, ramping up marketing efforts leading up to the debut almost guaranteeing a strong opening weekend. Besides, with Cruella ending on such a tantalizing cliffhanger, there are many who will want to see the sequel just out of pure curiosity. Cruella box office collection. So, Cruella, that is the movie released in 2021. Cruella starring Emma Stone has released worldwide and is receiving decent reviews. The movie is directed by Craig Gillespie and also released on Disney Plus soon after its theatrical release. So, the collection that the movie has made so far, another detail is Cruella box office collection. According to Box Office Mojo, the Alain Brosh, McKenna, Kelly Marshall, and Steve Zass's written movie has made a collection of 26 around the world. The movie has made with a budget of close to $200 million as per Screen Rant. It produced by Andrew Gunn, Mars Ballett, and Kristen Broad under the banners of Walt Disney Picture, Gunn Film, and Mark Plot Production. More about Cruella is that this is the movie has received a 72% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, while on IMDb it has scored a 7.5 out of 10 ratings. The movie is set in the 1970s at the time of the punk rock movement in London. It chronicles the life of Estella, who is a fashion designer. It further unfolds the twisted journey of Estella on the path that leads her to become a notorious fashion designer who starts to be known as Cruella de Vil. The movie was announced by Walt Disney Pictures back in 2013, after which Stone was got on board in 2016. She is also one of the executive producers on the project. Galen Close, who portrayed the role of Cruella in the movie 101 Dalmatians and 102 Dalmatians, which released in 1996 and 2000 respectively, is also part of the project as an executive producer. The movie was shot in England within a period of 3 months from August 2019 to November 2019. The movie was slated to release in December 2020 but was delayed due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The movie also got a red carpet premiere at the Il Captain Theatre in Los Angeles, which was the first red carpet ever since the lockdown restrictions were lifted. The movie concluded an ensemble cast that featured Emma Thompson, Joel Ferry, Paul Walter Hauser, Emily Beecham, Kirby Howell, and Mark Strong in key roles. The movie Cruella summary and other thing. Did you ever wonder how Cruella de Vil, the vampy friend from Disney 101 Dalmatians, become evil enough to want to kill puppies and skin them for fur cost? You didn't. Ah well, there's a movie about it, Cruella. It stars two Oscar-winning actresses, runs 2 hours and 14 minutes, and reportedly cost $200 million. A good chunk of it spent on an expensive soundtrack of familiar 60s and 70s pop songs. It never answered the burning question posed by its own existence: what new information could possibly make us sympathize with the original movie? Nuclear family loathing, vulnerable dog killing monster. The further away from Cruella what you get, the more its connection to 101 Dalmatians seems a mechanical attempt to leash an existing Disney intellectual property to a story that has no organic connection with it. Directed by Craig Gillespie, who does our discount courses, keeping the camera flying and the phonograph needle dropping, much as he did in I, Tonya, Cruella awkwardly combines a couple of popular moods. One is the origin story of a long-lived brand name character that didn't need a origin story, think Solo, a Star Wars story pan, and the third Indiana Jones. The opening sequence of The Last Crusade showed Indy acquiring his wisp, his chin scar, his head, and his figure of snakes in the space of 10 minutes. The other mood is the give the devil his due story represented on TV by dramas such as Beta's Model and Rushed and in cinema, which greater on lesser degree of artistry by Rob Zombie Halloween remake, which explore the abusive children of serial killer Michael Myers by the billion-dollar grossing Oscar-winning Joker by Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which gave Roald Dahl's inscrutable, faintly sinister clown Willy Wonka a tragic childhood by the Maleficent films, the first of which had soul at least, and by Broadway Wicked, which represented the Wicked Witch as a victim of bigotry who embraced her own stereotype and used it as a weapon against tormentors. The Corolla screenplay is in that vein, or sometime it tries to be, but it's a mess and it often seems to pursue to remind itself that it's supposed to have something to do with 101 Dalmatians. The script is credited to Donna Fox and Tonu McNamara from a story by Eileen Brosh McKenna, Kelly Marshall, and Steve Zassis. But although it was theoretically inspired by a Disney cartoon feature and adapted from Dodie Smith book, you could change the heroine name and take out a handful of iconic production design elements such as Corolla's Yin Yang hair and Bentley Roadster and the spotted dogs and have a serviceable feature in the vein of Madeline or Lomni Snakes, a series of unfortunate events or for the matter countless Charles Dickens film adaptation wherein a plunky child or teenager navigates a world of useless or treacherous adult becoming embroiled in plots to steal this object or expose that bad person. Far from wanting to kill and skin dogs, a pre-crawler girl named Estella, played by Emma Stone, owns one and dotes on it. As the story unfolds, we never see her being cruel to an animal or even saying an unkind word about them. She blames Dalmatians for the accidental death of her mother, a poor laundrywoman played by Emily Beecham, but that's more of a reflective loathing like hating the ocean if you had lost a loved one to drowning. It's not as if she is sworn vengeance against Canis journally. Our heroine is a sassy, plucky orphan who overcomes a life of deprivation on London's swinging streets, joining up with a couple of buddies, Jasper and Horik, and running grifts and scams. A brilliant draftswoman with an eye for style, Estella gets a job at a big departmental store. In a fit of pique, she reconfigures a shop window display because it showcases a gown she thinks it's ugly, altering it in the process, and is summarily hired by the store's biggest vendor, fashion designer Baroness von Hellman. The Baroness is a staff abusing control freak who nevertheless becomes the closest thing to a mentor and mother that Estella has had since her own mom's death. Through a combination of incidents too tangled to recent year, the story morphed into an all-about a riff about intergenerational rivalry between women in a creative workplace. Estella becomes increasingly resentful of the Baroness abusing her and stealing her glory. In time, she gradually learns what a pile person that Baroness is and vows to humiliate and destroy her and usurp her spot as the top fashionista in London. All in all, not a bad setup for a knockabout comedy drama set in what feels like an alternate universe, one that's more clever and colorful than the one we are stuck with. Although Jasper and Fry never quite feel like more than obligatory sidekicks, and Cruella is given a childhood best friend, Maya, a photojournalist and gossip columnist who is reduced to the status of a plot device in the film's second half. But Stella needs to become Cruella de Vil just as Arthur Fleck had to become the Joker and Anakin Skywalker had to become Darth Vader. Otherwise, the production cannot end up in theaters and on Disney Plus. And so, Corolla, much like the half charming, half pointless solo, has to south on bits of lore and backstory and fan workery into the narrative. None more restful than the moment where the heroine decided that Corolla needs an equally colorful last name and takes it from a certain model of automobile. Did we need that? Isn't the wordplay or devil and da will sufficient? Apparently not. And of course, young children are going to eat that sort of thing right up, even though it's amazingly even worse than the scene is solo, where the intelligent customs officially assign the hero his last name because he is traveling alone. It's a bumper really because like many a hard person become the character we already know. Film's Crossra is filled with situation, set pieces, and moments of characterization and performance that suggest it had everything required to stand on its own two high-heeled feet minus the guidelines of intellectual property owned by the largest entertainment conglomerate the world has ever seen. Estella's rightful desire to punish a bad person, for example, is intertwined with her drive to success in business, a touch of psychological complexity that the script is not interested in unpacking because it already had its hand full, making Estella a lively character in her own right and simultaneously setting her up to become Cruella de Vil, a transformation that makes increasingly less sense the more you learn about the character. A piety that people in real life often do good things for bad reasons and vice versa, or use their trauma as an excuse to lower themselves to the level of the person you have decided is to quiet Bond's nemesis, Blofeld, the author of all their pain, because the film cannot or will not deal with the material that's right in front of it. It comes across seeming as if it wants credit for a suffocation it does not possess. There's no denying that Corolla is stylish and kinetic with a nasty edge that's unusual for a recent Disney live action feature. But it's also exhausting, disorganized, and frustratingly inherent considering how hard it works to ensure you that it's thrilling and cheeky. You get 40 minutes into it and realize the main story has not started yet. We are it not for the acrobatic camera work, the game lead performances by two Emmas, and the parade of eye-popping costume by Jenny Bevan, 80 knockout in 134 minutes, not counting the period-inspired background grab on the extras. It would be a nonsensical heap of broken images as aesthetically bankrupt as Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker and the first Suicide Squad. More vexing is the film's reluctance to own the fact that, as one of many obvious song cues assure us, it has sympathy for the devil. She is not really the devil, not even remotely, as the script keeps telling us. But she is an awful person in many ways, and we are expected to adore her because the Baroness is so much worse. The movie hits a giddy peak in its final act when it becomes a context of films. It's here that the lead cut loose. Thompson in particular achieves cartoonish grandiosity, a supervillain armored in haute couture. Every head tilt, sneer, and side eye is a non-physical assault on the Baroness enemies and underlings, some of who don't realize they have been symbolically executed until their heads hit the basket. The effect is similar to what Cat Blanchett achieved in Thor Ragnarok, another film where the costume ever practically giving performance of their own, and the smartest actor is the cast know how to merge with them. But Cruella never embraces darkness in the way it keeps threatening to. There's nothing in this film remotely as powerful as the moment in the first Maleficent when the heroine awakens on the hilltop after spending the night with a duplicitous man and find that her wings have been chopped off. It's an atrocity that reads as a sexual and psychological assault, even though the movie never framed it that way, and it powers her through the rest of the story, freeing us to root for a traumatized outcast monster. Maleficent eventually compromises to pulling back from its heroine grimmest fantasies, but it's still as close as Disney has gotten to letting Satan footnote the Bible. And it's look better every time the studio releases something like Cruella, a movie that finches from its own premise even as it looks great doing it. Cruella will release semestrally in the theater and on Disney Plus with premiere access of a one-night additional fee on Friday, May 28, 2021 maybe. So Cruella ending and how it connects to 101 Dalmatians. We know Cruella de Vil as an eccentric aristocrat whose sole joy in life is forecast. Yet in Cruella, the title character doesn't start life as wealthy or wicked. She is simply Estella, a brash and creative child who often creates trouble but lacks the financial means to be taken seriously in the world of fashion. First, as the daughter of a poor single mother, and then, after her mother dies, as an orphan who becomes a thief to get by. Yet by the end of Cruella, Estella ascends to heights she never expected, both through her own creative genius and by claiming a birthright she never knew was hers. Throughout the film, Estella constructs and strategically deploys the persona of Cruella to get revenge on the Baroness, a fashion icon. Estella also learned murder her mother when she was 12. Corolla's brilliance for clothing design and provocative ways of showcasing it grab the attention of the fashion world and make her the Baroness number one rival. So when the Baroness figure out who Cruella is, she has her home burned down with Cruella in it. Likely, Cruella is saved by the Baroness valet John, but the newspaper report that Cruella has died. Meanwhile, John hides Estella away at his place, where he reveals that Estella is actually the Baroness' daughter. The Baroness thought John had killed her child immediately after she was born, as she had requested, but really John gave her to Catherine, one of the Baroness' maid to raise. Despite learning her true parentage, Estella's desire for revenge against the Baroness is more pronounced than ever, and the revelation that she is the true heir to the Baroness. Fortune gives on one more way to take away everything the Baroness loves. Estella's plan plays out during a gala at Hellman Hell, the Baroness' remote mansion. She sends all the guest wigs with black and white hardos like Cruella's. The wigs are accompanied by a card, supposedly from the Baroness, that asks them to wear the wigs as a tribute to the supposedly deceased Cruella. This is not only incredibly disconcerting to the Baroness but also enables Cruella to slip through the crowd undetected. Estella then puts on a wig of red hair, the look she used when she went by her given name, and uses the Baroness' dog whistle which she had stolen earlier in the party to summon the Baroness Dalmatian to the same cliffside where her mother died. The dog drags the Baroness with them, and when the Baroness realizes Estella is alive and waiting for her, she sends the Dalmatians to attack her. However, the dogs obey when Estella commands them to sit. Since plan A doesn't work, the Baroness tries plan B. She comes closer to Estella, and when Estella informs her that she is discovered that Baroness is her mother, the cooled fashionista tries to manipulate her long-lost daughter by suggesting a reconciliation. However, when the conversation ends with the hug, the Baroness takes the opportunity to push Estella off the cliff. Unbeknownst to her, however, at the behest of Cruella's allies who have also infiltrated the party, a crowd has gathered behind her and sees her push Estella, which leads to her arrest and conviction on murder charges. Of course, Estella is not really dead, although she is ultimately buried. Estella had a parachute secretly strapped to her clothes, and when the Baroness pushes her, she deploys it and saves her life. However, in order for the murder charges against her biological mother to stick, Estella has to remain dead. So Estella becomes Cruella's full-time. However, before Estella's death, she willed her fortune to Cruella, ensuring she still inherits the Baroness money property and three Dalmatians. Cruella 2021. After permanently becoming Cruella, the Emma Stone rejects the Baroness' last name Hellman and instead removes the man from the word at the entrance to the drive to Hellman Hall, changing the mentioned title to Hell Hall. This is an especially appropriate change given Estella has also decided to give Cruella the last name De Vil. Finally, a mid-credit sequence in Cruella points to possibility of a one-handed and one Dalmatians-inspired sequel. In the sequence, Anita and Roger, the central human couple in the animation classic, receives Dalmatians puppies named Pongo and Pedrita respectively. The parents of the puppies Cruella eventually dog names, yet according to the cards including with them, the puppies are a gift from Cruella, who promises to see Anita soon. Directed by Craig Gillespie, Cruella stars Emma Stone, Emma Thompson, Paul Walter Hauser, Joel Ferry, Emily Beecham, Kirby Howell, Bess Pig, and Mark Strong. The film is currently available in theater and on Disney Plus. Premiere success. The film review of the movie Cruella that is released in 2021, and this is the movie played by Emma Stone as a Cruella. So I believe it had grown tired with the origin story, the once fresh concept that had gone long ago, grown tail to the point that even the phrase has taken on negative connotations. My fear was the Cruella would be one of those creatively staged films that dragged out the iconic villainess only to put her through predictable and unsatisfying motions. Instead, director Craig Gillespie throws all my fears night out the window. Cruella is devilishly good. It is ultra stylish romp that breathes new film into the original film. Even referring to it as an origin film feels like a bit of deserve since this is so much more here to appreciate. It is an instant classic that will be enjoyed for generations. Led by a rocking performance from Anna Stone as the title character and a wickedly good Emma Thompson, the film exudes style from start to finish. If I happen to use the term style over and over, forgive me because the film is feast for the eyes and is teeming with it. The sets, the makeup, the hair, and of course the costume are all awards worthy. From the lavish high-end costumes to punk rock glamour that capture the era perfectly. The art direction and production design are absolutely exquisite but always remain grounded in reality. It all combines to build a world you feel like you can live and breathe in, not one of make believe. And while I have so fun mainly focus on the aesthetic, this is no way a style over substance situation. While it overflows with extravagance and flair, any such concern is quickly forgotten. The screenplay by Donna Fox and Tony McNamara developed into a respectively layered and complex character study tackling theme of self-discovery and drive. It accomplishes this all while delivering a rollicking experience audience will eat up. The film wit, charm, and energy is fully completed by one of the best soundtrack in memory. Absolutely brilliant needed drops by music supervisor Susan Jacob, dozens of covers and familiar classic are used to elevate scenes, sometimes it with only a line or two. You may think a couple are on the nose but will quickly discredit that you are singing along. We first meet our heroine in the delivery room where even as an infant she makes a statement with her signature black and white mane. Born Estella, she wears her hair with pride even as it makes her an outcast from her youngest days right into primary school. It is there where she has learned that she can deal it out even better than she can take it. Not a bad kid per se, Estella just sees the world different than everyone else. She is a bit of genius, possesses a keen fashion sense and owns a punk rock age that cannot be tamed. Even after requested of her mother, Emily Beecham, 12 years old Estella, by typer Sapphire Cleaner, struggled to keep the good version of herself in the forefront. Instead, the darker, more rebellious and mischievous side, Cruella often wins out while she tries her best to be on her best behavior. There is an inner tug of war going on which leads her to seemingly spend more time in headmaster's office than in the classroom. This duality plays out beautifully throughout the film. She spends her formative years pursuing her passion for fashion while living on the streets of London with some newfound pickpocket friends. Fast forward 10 years and an adult Estella continues to live as a grifter with her pals Jasper and Horace, the not so legitimate profession, but the gift for fashion into good shoes in a series of ingenious cons, some that even make their patch-eyed dog wink and compromise as he shuffles away with the wallet in his mouth. Estella stably supplies her with the money to design more outfits that she uses to steal more money to design more outfits. An endless cycle that leaves her wanting more. Eventually, a stroke of luck has her working with the Baroness be all and end all in fashion, played Emma Thompson, who realizes is one of the most delightfully naughty role of her career. Without giving too much away, not only in the Baroness her boss, she also possesses an heirloom of Estella's that she must have back. This is where it's get good and stay really good at being bad, finding and even sharper edge that slashes expectation in the most clever of ways. Craig Gillespie, who surprised me by turning the story of an outcast from the wrong side of the track into the best film of the years, and Itona does so again here. I was taken back by how seamlessly he dabbled in gender, delivering an expertly conducted mashup that captures some of the best wield while nailing the right tone. Films like Ocean 11, The Devil Wears Prada, All About Eve, and other favorite blender together into something recognizable but always fresh. He captured the essence of the era while staying true to the character and the story first. He nails a tune dark enough service the character age while striking the correct balance on the lighter notes. This may be why it's so easy to forget this is a Disney film based on one of their most famous villain. While it feels connected to the original, it also works as a standalone as films one that can be enjoyed by a very wide audience. And while elements of the original animated film make their way into the screen, they are never distracting and only briefly and welcomely slipping into fan service territory. This is Cruella's story through and through. As an actress, Emma Stone has proven time and time again just how versatile she can be. There is no exception, it is inspired casting that pays off constantly. She disappears into the title role, and that for her alter ego, Estella. This is a career best performance. It is full of both powerful, bold splashes and nuanced subtitles that peel away to reveal just what makes his moody character tick. And in moments of true fashion deserving of a runaway, she demands your attention as the slinks and struts across the screen, making the goddess of entrances. Keep an eye on the way she carries herself. Stone's altered her body language to capture Cruella with precision, often with just the slightest switch of the shoulder blade or a change in posture. She is the film's best special effect. Speaking of which, the film relies on practical effects or well discussed CGI, avoiding the pitfall of many films that are more in love and with the technology than the character. Emma Stone, as for performance, there are several standouts throughout, starring with young Corolla, triple cipher, Cleverland. She possesses a nonchalance to her performance that makes her relatable, even as she is pummeling the school bully. We will be seeing a lot of her in the years to come. Paul Walter Hauser and Joy Free have great comedic chemistry as Corolla's crime family. Hauser finds the sweet stop going big but never too far over the top to deliver the film's biggest laugh. John McCrea as a boy Isco fashion-minded friend is a lot of fun. Jamie DePontes as a still a sharp manager called makes the most of his time on screen. He is wonderfully, wisely, almost too much so. Nice Novik Kirby Howell, Bestip and Mark Strong all do well here, but are slightly underused given the 134 minutes runtime. As I break it down, it's easy to realize just how much is crammed into this film, yet for the most part it feels breezy and has an almost kinetic feel, especially during the wildly entertaining heist scenes, thanks to some crafting editing by Tatiana S. Regil, composer Nicholas Bridle's haunting score draws some of the underlying darkness out of the character. It is complemented by the cinematography of Nicholas, who goes back and between gracefully dolly shots to a more raw, shaky handle that subtly conveys the dichotomy between Estella and Corolla. Sadly, for close it to not a perfect film, there is some unfortunately distracting green screen during a crucial scene that kept grabbing my attention. And while I enjoyed the ride, it may have benefited from one less high scene. Still, it truly is a delight to watch with powerhouse performance, amazing costume, great music, incredible art direction, and more. It all worked so well together that I found myself looking past and flaws and just enjoying the ride. I watched it twice, enjoying it more with each viewing, and I am eager to watch it again soon. While you can certainly can enjoy it at home on Disney Plus, it really comes to life on the big screen, which is one reason this is a must-see film of 2021. Corolla 2021, Emma Stone, and the movie is released in 2021. So let's review the movie. Emma Stone is a joy as the refashioned supervillain. So in 1996, 101 Dalmatians, gallant clothes, gleefully unchanged performance as a puppy skinned fashion designer riffed on older audience member prior knowledge of the actor as a bunny baller in Fatal Attraction. Emma Stone Cruella de Vil is much more grounded and thus not a camped as supervillain with a believable backstory. Baroness Estella, bullied by boys at school and established as a maverick who is always refused to follow the pattern, as her single mother puts it in both dressmaking and in life. Set in 1970 London against a backdrop of the emerging punk scene, this playful prequel by Craig Gillespie is a fine feat of word building. Like Phantom Thread or Mary Antoinette, it's also an excellent fashion film playing on the myth of the egocentric, detail-oriented genius. One of its main narrative threads involves Estella's apprenticeships at an eventual sabotage of a culture fashion house headed by an icy narcissist named the Baroness Emma Thompson, executing Meryl Streep's energy in the Devil Wears Prada fashion enthusiast may also draw connection between the House of Baroness sculpture, Dar Esque grounds and Stella's Alexander McQueen influenced lace and leather looks. McKinney, of course, succeeded John Glanso at Givenchy in the 90s when the latter moved to Dior. There is even a reference to McQueen's 2011 Monarch butterfly dress. The film is structured as a family-friendly heist movie that plays out against a series of costume balls. There's probably one act too many and so the packing suffers. Younger children with shorter attention spans might too. Still, Stone is a joy, vampy, sneering, and as eager to please as a Dalmatians. Cruella 2021 and the movie is played by Emma Stone. Reimagine the one-handed and war Dalmatians, the villain as an iconic underdog. Words black and white and red all over. A Dalmatian thief with a diaper rash or a sacred frock Disney villainess making her debut in the London tabloids, starring Oscar winner Emma Stone as the monochrome coffeed Francesca with a soft spot for puppy. For Cruella takes its cue from the Wicked playbook, or more recently Warner Bros. Joker, to deliver a dark yet sympathetic portrait of a cult favorite character whom audiences only thought they knew. The character, of course, is 101 Dalmatian dog napper Cruella de Vil, previously embodied by Glenn Close for one of the studio's first live-action adaptation, who turns out to be more fierce than Crawl is a franchise offering with an identity of its own. What Cruella is not to the immense release of many, I'm sure is another Maleficent, although who could top the casting of Angelina Jolie as Sleeping Beauty's misunderstood nemesis, where sees that live-action Disney spin-off was an obvious eye score that risked tarnishing the appeal of the original. Directed Craig Gillespie proves energetically creative in its reimagining of underlying IP. Set in 1970 London, the movie imagined Cruella as a Vivienne Westwood-esque pump clothing designer desperate to make her mark, parading an increasingly stunning line of anti-establishment garments. Only one of them, for Stone, seems positively delighted to vamp her way through the role, channeling her best evergreen energy as a alabaster-skinned, cat-eyed, hot couture disruptor opposite Emma Thompson, Imperial Boston, the elegant yet egocentric designer at the top of the London fashion scene. So often these high-concept prequel reboot can feel like watching someone else try to solve a punishingly tough Sudoku puzzle as handsomely composited screenwriter tie themselves in pretzel to reverse engineer a plot with which audiences are already all too familiar. By contrast, Cruella stands in own to the extent that Disney could have changed the title character name and the resulting movie would still have been a slying, empowering undergo story, especially for those who see themselves in the put upon assistance position of the Devil Wears Prada. In retrospect, was not the movie a Cinderella fantasy of sorts? Credit goes to co-writer Dana Fox and Tony McNamara, although it was the true of Elena Bros McKenna, Kelly Marshall, and Steve Zassis who cracked the way for Cruella to come across as more than just a one-joke camp icon, but an anti-hero to be reckoned with. As a result of their collective brainstorming, Cruella has been reimagined as the survivor of a bleak Dacnician childhood. Even her birth name Estella seems like a deliberate nod to great expectations. The poor little nonconformist, played in early scene by Typer Sapper, witnesses her mother knocked off a cliff by three vaguely aggressive Dalmatians, which hardly served to explain her own antipathy toward the creature. That said, but Disney fan wants to see these notoriously difficult dog recast as aggressors. The movie's true villain is the aforementioned Baroness, a cutthroat businesswoman who discovers Estella's untapped talent for design clothes during a visit to the Liberty departmental store and invite the until now unlucky young lady to come work for her. By this point in the film, Stone has assumes the role of Estella, a two-bit crafted who's been discussing her rather unusual natural hair color, stark white on the left, pitch black on the right, and trying to catch a career break. Now it's off to the races as Gillespie leans on vintage British rock to power throb montages, almost sure to inspire a generation of kids to seek employment in the fashion industry. In many ways, Corolla feels more Tim Burton-esque than Tim Burton's own contribution to the Disney live-action catalog. 2019 plotted Dumbo, giving the title character a chick-jotic attitude designed to clash with the relatively snooby institution she is determined to upset. The movie runs a hefty 134 minutes and pack a lot of story into that space, including Estella's parallel life as a petty criminal. She and fellow orphan Jasper and Horik are constantly scheming small-time heists, and Estella dreams of more legitimate success as a clothing designer. Their skills of destruction and disuse serve them well when it comes time to crash one of the Baroness swanky themed parties. That's where the Corolla identity is born as an alter ego of Estella, who makes a rather spectacle entrance at the bronze black and white ball, literally lighting the ground sheet arrived in on fire and emerging in a strictly verboten red all over stunner instead from the moment she arrived on screen until this point. Thompson has clearly stolen the show, but now it's Stone's to take back. The rest of the film plays like a rapidly escalating war between the two devils, and the battle gets brutal enough at times that parents of younger kids may be shocked that such a film carries the Disney imprint. Then again, the fact that Gillespie and his team don't play it safe but embrace the macabre series of unfortunate events like setback that befall these characters, including a scene in which the Baroness repays the favor of having been upstaged by attempting to burn Corollas alive. That makes it something rather than formulaic kid Fogger, the director who brought a wicked egg to pop culture redux. I, Tonya, a few years back was rescued Corolla from the predictability of the earlier 101 Dalmatians remakes and created a stylish new franchise of its own in which a one-time villain has been reborn as the unlikest of role model. The production is a Walt Disney Studio motion picture. Disney Plus release of a Disney presentation of Mark Plot. The movie Cruella 2021. A Disney villain gets a backstory and it's a spotty. Cruella is a vaguely retro costume party with a darkly retro playlist, a treat for fashion and courteous kids wiped up by the boomer and Gen 6 who hold the keys to the Disney IP's storage locker, and there's a millennial Oscar winner in the titular role. When I say it has something for everyone, I am not being sarcastic, though I am also not being entirely complimentary. This revision is supervillain origin story directed by Craig Gillespie. Itonia doesn't offer much that is genuinely new, but it nonetheless feels fresher than most recent Disney live action efforts. There's some visual wit and pop spectacle in the midway Daxian tale of how Cruella de Vil, the notorious pooch hater of one-headed and one Dalmatians, came to the way. Reviewing the original animated adaptation of Dodie Smith's novel of the time in 1961, Howard Thompson observed that the kids who survived Sacco should survive Cruella. Pretty scary stuff. Times change, no puppies, CGI or otherwise are harmed in this movie. Cruella, originally shown as Estella and played by a harmlessly snarly Emma Stone, actually likes dogs, though she does have a specific grudge against Dalmatians. This is not Joker, so Cruella's transgressive energies are kept within the bounds of social acceptability and the PG-13 rating. Her motive is revenge and her method include fraud, theft and deceit, but the closest she comes to evil is occasional selfish insensitivity to her friends. She is not a monster, she is an artist, and her theatrical outrageous misbehavior is a sign of her uncompromising creativity. Cruella's swaggering electric spirit aligned with the film's idea of London in the 1970s. Its elect setting, the aesthetic is raffish, glamish, and also punkish, and the musical selection through this year from their synthetic, majestic request to London Calling. No deep cut here, just an electric stemming of dead rock essential. The choice can be a little on the nose. Stone photo appearances as the ground up Stella with their dyed crimson is handled by she is a rainbow, but my middle is the oldest greatest hit back, and she is the one keeping things lively even more. The plot turns and Jimmy Brown costume and Fiona Crosby store bohemian thrift shops and churcher place. Estella starts out as a renegade schoolgirl with two torn hair and soon lands in London orphan and alone. She befriends a pair of pickpockets, Jasper and Horrick, who grow up to be Joel Ferry and Paul Walter Hosker, providing cartoon sidekick Jeopardy as the horizon of Estella's ambition shift from pretty crime to high fashion. At that point, she adds a journalist and a used clothing aficionado to her routine. Estella's nemesis and role model is a famous designer known as the Baroness, a self-described genius who recall Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada, Daniel Day-Lewis in Phantom Thread, and of course Cruella de Vil in both her cartoon and Glenn Close incarnations. Luckily, the role belongs to Emma Thompson, who plays her as a haughty, fine-line paradiddle, alternatively annoyed, ingrate, and charmed by Stone's angry mouse. The film itself traffics in less intense emotion, which make it easy enough to watch but hard to care much about. Its main purpose is to remind you that other movies exist which might describe Disney's current business strategy as a whole. At best, it might also inspire you to spin some old records or play dress up with those white clothes that have languished in the back of the closet through these spring altruistic month.